Hey everyone, it's JG. I'm in Raid Shadow Legends, and tonight I want to talk about arena teams. So recently I completely rebuilt an arena team. I built myself a second solid arena team, so I haven't been performing as well as I want to in Tag Team Arena, and so I'm looking to build a second team, so I have two solid teams in there, and also generally trying to improve my arena offense for the main arena to help me farm all those medals you need to upgrade your Great Hall. So tonight I thought I'd walk through my old arena team, my new arena team, and possibly give some tips that could be new to you. The big caveat I want to put out here is I am not a PvP expert. I'm not great at PvP in most PvP aspects of games, and Raid is no exception. So this is not telling you how to get to Platinum Arena, but currently I'm in Gold 4 to Gold 5. I'm not doing too bad, and generally I'm producing kind of low end game sorts of content. So if you're not a super professional player and you just want to improve a little bit, maybe you'll find some tips in here that are useful to you. So this right here is my old arena team. This is a team I've been running with for a long time, and honestly, I've been rotating pieces of it. Duchess and Basher here, I think, have been in the team for a very long time. Those are both some pretty early pulls on my account. But I've been swapping out the other elements in here as I've gotten better characters for it. So this one did get me up to Gold 4 at least, maybe low Gold 5. So this team has been pretty good for me. That said, one of the big problems with it is no one in here is really geared for PvP. So this team I just built by taking champions that I built for other areas of the game. I prioritized all the PvE content, and I just took my good PvE champions and threw them together in an arena team to make it work. And it did all right, but the thing that I changed in my new arena team is I actually built all the champions explicitly for arena. They all have arena-focused masteries and blessings, and so I'm hoping that results in some better performance here. So let me talk through really quickly what I'm looking at with this team. So the fastest one on my team, we have Duchess Lilitu here. She is running at 250 speed. That's the speed that I need her for my clan boss teams that she's in. So in that speed tune, and then generally built for PvE outside of that. So pretty good defense, pretty good HP. We got 70k there. Crit rate and crit damage completely ignored. I tried to build high resist into her as well. This isn't as high as I'd like it to be, but it is high enough that she's able to shake off some of these arena attacks from other folks. In terms of masteries, again, this is a pretty PvE-focused build aimed at high resist here. So this is actually fairly relevant for PvP as well. So that's the tier 6 blessing is picking up that. Then a lot of the sort of speed boosting, etc. Except I had to grab the ones that are friendly for clan boss auto tunes. So in general, her kit is focused around being hard to kill. So if you're not familiar with Duchess, she's got this A2 block debuffs, AoE block debuffs plus increased attack, perfect veil on everyone except Duchess. The A3 is great. It's a dedicated revive skill. Revive all dead allies with 70% HP, then put veil on them, and continuous heal on everybody. She also decreases AoE damage for the whole team with this passive, in addition to the decrease that you get when they are under veil. And her A1 places a shield on herself and the rest of the party. So really, she became a clear favorite of mine when I picked her up. She's good at carrying the party through every other sort of content, and Arena is no exception. She pops people back up with that revive when she needs to. Second, we have Helicath here. Helicath on my account is built primarily for Clan Boss. Being able to get the top chest in Clan Boss on the highest difficulty level is one of the best things you can do for your account. That's what I've targeted him at. If you've seen my videos about the swing comp to try to use him also in Iron Twins, he's helpful there. But generally, I use him in a lot of other content. He's a great defense type to bring into a lot of different Doom Tower bosses, Doom Tower waves, a lot of my dungeon content as well. So again, he is built very much for PvE. We have a 248 speed, which is the value needed for my various speed tunes. Accuracy, we're at 258, so 230 is the usual target that I go for, which covers max level clan boss. It covers Doom Tower up to about hard 40, which is as far as I push at the moment. And it covers equipment dungeons all the way up to the max level. So he's a little higher than that. I think I should probably added a little to the Great Hall since the point where I first built him. Equipment, speed, defense, perception sets here. On the mastery side, some pretty classic PvE type builds. So again, War Master is the top level one we're going for here for that extra damage for clan boss. The pretty classic down the left side set of masteries here, and then the speed tune friendly support masteries that I can pick up as well. Third slot for this team is Ragash. Pretty much every arena team you want to have a defense down champion. And the thing I love about Ragash, he's got this great skill for Typhoon on a 3-turn cooldown. So it books to a 100% chance of placing decreased defense, which places before the hit, which is good for two things. Number one, weak hits can't cancel it out. And number two, their defense is down before the hit. So this also hits pretty hard. And then it also has a 100% chance of placing stun on everyone. So again, accuracy-wise, built to about 240 accuracy. That's good for PvE content. If we look at Masters on Ragash, they look kind of similar to Helicath. Down the left side, ending in War Master for good damage against bosses. And then a nice support tree here. I aimed to get both Lasting Gifts and Master Hexer because he has both good buffs and good debuffs that I like to extend. And then finally, the slowest person on the team, we've got Basher at 215 speed. So I really like Basher. Honestly, I pulled him early, so I've invested a lot in him. So the great thing I love about Basher is this A2, Stinging Blast, 3-turn cooldown, AoE hit with a pretty good multiplier, and then increases cooldown of all target skills by 2 turns. So the thing that I like about this, certainly early in the game, this was my very first good source of crowd control. So generally, cooldown of skills is not as good of a crowd control as something like Stun or Freeze, but there's a couple reasons that it's nice. So the one thing that makes it better than those is block debuffs does not block this. So like a turn meter decrease, cooldown decrease, doesn't count it as a debuff, so it can be resisted, but it can't be blocked with block debuffs. So even though this isn't the very best type of crowd control, it doesn't lock them out from taking their turns. It limits them to their A1s. Once you put their skills on cooldown, all they can do is hit with their A1. There's still some dangerous A1s out there, but for the most part, especially if I use Basher in wave content, this really stops the whole team from using anything but their A1. So they're not using any of the skills that really make them unique as champions, and that's a pretty good situation to be in. The other thing I liked about him, and the reason I invested in him early, is because a 100% chance AoE full crowd control is a kind of rare thing to come by. So Basher has it in an epic. So this was one of the first opportunities that I had to pick up a strong method of crowd control. You don't generally see that level of crowd control in an epic. So, Ragash was one of the newer additions to this team. Obviously, full stun is a little better than full decreased cooldown in most contexts. But Basher, in earlier additions to this team, give a great method of control that had the team working pretty well. For Basher's masteries, we also have War Master here for PvE content. A little bit of a different set here. Basher was one of the first champions that I built to be a campaign farmer. Being Void type, he could sort of work against any level there. And so he's got a lot of these things like Whirlwind of Death or Kill Streak and things that are effective for wave farming type situations. So again, optimized for War Master for being relevant in bosses with that, and otherwise for PvE type damage. So there's a couple different ways that this team tends to play out. So the first one is where we actually go first. This isn't really aimed to be a go first speed team, although with pretty good speed values on Duchess and Helicath and Duchess's speed aura, there's a fair amount of the time when I do go first. If that happens, then you get Duchess placing block debuffs, Helicath placing block damage, and then if anyone from the other team gets in with an attack at that point, we're pretty much impervious. It's all going to bounce right off of us. They can't hit us with debuffs, and they can't do any damage to us. Ragash comes in next with a nice drop defense and stun. Basher comes last, does the decreased cooldowns. Usually that's not enough to kill them, so I don't really have anyone in here that's a full nuker. But then at that point, it comes back around. Usually they're stunned, so they don't take turns, or if they do, then Basher has decreased their cooldown, so they don't do anything very interesting. It comes back around to Helikath for his large A2, which is a pretty hard-hitting AoE as well. So between Ragash, Basher, and Helikath's nuke skills, usually at that point the fight is pretty much over. The second way this sometimes works is if the other team goes first, then generally they kill Basher. Basher is definitely the least tanky person on the team. Sometimes, depending on how good their nukers are, they'll kill Ragash is usually the second one to fall. Helikath, because of that really big defense I put on him, frequently does not die. And so what frequently will happen there is when Duchess gets her turn, first turn on our team, she just pops Ragash and Basher back up. Helikath then gets his block damage, and so that at that point, the other enemy can keep kind of wailing on us for a little bit, but generally can't do very much to us. Then eventually Ragash and Basher get their turn meters full again. They crowd control and debuff everyone, and then we start finally killing people. So those are the ways that the team tends to win, and it usually does well against sort of flash in the pan teams. This team has a lot of tank to it, and so speed teams that just aim to kill everyone in one wave tend to not kill all of us, and we come back with a lot of power. That said, there are a couple ways that this team loses. So some of the champions that I don't like to see with this team, Madame Serris is one of them, because she can strip buffs, which means that block debuffs from Duchess stops doing its job. The second one is anyone with block revive, since normally I rely on Duchess just popping the whole team back anytime they die. So something like Zavia or Phenax or Rotas, those are definitely dangerous ones that can give me some trouble. The third thing I tend to struggle with is teams with a lot of crowd control on them. So especially if they've built themselves with enough accuracy that they're hitting Duchess and preventing her from getting out that block debuffs, then locking the team out with stuns and freezes, definitely a way that I see this team die. So what I'm going to try here is running my old arena team versus every team that I see in this current arena list, and we're going to see which ones we win, which ones we lose. We're going to come back through with the new arena team and see if it's able to win some of the ones that the current team doesn't win. Alright, so overall, original arena team took down 7 of 10 in this current set. That's not bad at all. That's how I'm able to barely stay into gold 5 here. Let's see if the new team can do any better than that. Alright, so what was I looking for in my new arena team? Well, in general, champs that are good in the arena, and I looked for champions that I had that I just hadn't built yet. I've got PvE pretty well covered with all the teams that I have already, so I was looking for champs that are solid, but that I hadn't built anywhere else, so that I could just devote them purely to PvP. Some of these I do end up using in other PvE content with that same build, so Genbo, for instance, can just hit hard and steal buffs, and I use that in a couple of dungeon teams where that's useful. But I just looked through my account for good champions I'd picked up along the way and just never had a chance to build to put this together. And so what I went for here was just a classic speed team. This team has no revive, it has no healing, so the goal here is just kill everyone in one round. If the fight's not over in the first round, then we're going to have a little bit of trouble. But let's look into what I did here. So leader, we've got Genbo here, who has 20% speed aura for arena only. The real champion for the speed, though, is Seeker here. So Seeker's job is just to put out this Tailwind skill. This A2 increases turn meter of everyone else by 30% and adds increased attack to the rest of the team. So he's just there to buff folks and get them a turn. I haven't built him for bulk. He's got some other pretty good uses. This passive is helpful as well. So it places increased defense on everyone if Seeker is hit with a critical hit. In Arena, pretty much all hits are critical hits. Everyone's going to be in their crit capped. And so this lets him share increased defense with the rest of the team. This is why he's in slot 2. Everyone that comes after him is going to get the benefit of that from the same hit. Like if it's a big AoE nuke, the same hit that hits Seeker. Genbo, unfortunately, has to be in the lead slot for the Aura, so he does not benefit from this. So he's definitely the easiest one to kill on the team. But I have some mitigations for that we'll talk about in a second. So Seeker, really, I just built for as much speed as possible. So I got him up at 302. Definitely the best I've ever done on this account. I got him to 302 in part because of this beautiful weapon that I rolled a little while back. Speed, legendary weapon, rolled speed 4 times. Also, the glyph rolled well at the very beginning. And so, plus 29 speed on a speed set in one piece of equipment. Really, I wish it was 6 stars instead of 5 stars, but this is a very nice piece. It definitely went right on Seeker when I was building it. And then, as many speed rolls as I could get everywhere else. He'd be in a 3rd speed set, except that I just didn't have gloves and boots in a speed set that had the right attributes on them. So I went with a 6-star boot that I happened to have sitting around in a different set, and the best speed roll that I could find on a defense gauntlet. So a broken set there. Mastery-wise, this is the big place where the new team really diverges from the old teams. Whereas in PvE content, you have a lot of people grabbing War Master. In PvP, there's some very different things that are effective. And so, for instance, things like improved parry decreases the damage received from a critical hit. Not very useful in PvE content, where the crit rate tends to be a flat 15%. Very useful in PvP content, where the crit rate tends to be 100%. So this is kicking in. This is basically 8% reduced damage against more or less all hits in the arena. Shadow Heal, another one. A good way to stay alive in the arena. Not a whole lot of enemy healing in PvE content, so this one's not quite as useful there. The lower level ones we picked up, Retribution, so a chance to counterattack when someone gets hit hard on the team. That would be more useful if I had built Seeker to hit hard, which I did not. Although Cycle of Revenge here, chance of increasing his turn meter. And so he has that as well as Timely Intervention and Spirit Haste, all aimed at if the team is starting to die, try to get Seeker an extra turn, hope he has that A2 ready again, and can get the rest of the team a turn so that can come in clinch and win the fight. So after Seeker goes, we have just a very classic speed team pattern in the skills that come next. We've got drop defense, a debuff hit from Herndig with AoE drop defense. We've got a crowd control move from Goffred to stun everyone. We've got Genbo just hitting really hard with a nuke. So second turn here is Herndig. We've got him at 247 speed, so that gets him in right after Seeker after that speed boost. One of the other places where you start seeing a difference in this build compared to PvE builds is I built the accuracy significantly higher. I was mentioning 230 is where I cap out for PvE content. In the arena, there's really no limit to how much resist people might have, and so more accuracy is always better. This one's a little bit low. I probably could have pushed him higher. I might rebuild him for a little bit more. I went for only 309 here. You'll see my Goffred has quite a bit more than that. And then masteries, since he is an attacker, he picked up some of the offense ones. The defense ones weren't a great fit for this. But, one of the ones that you aim for in Arena a lot of the time is Eagle Eye. So accuracy plus 50. Like I mentioned, there's really no limit to how much resistance your opponents might have. There are going to be teams that work on adding a lot of resist. And so the more accuracy you can have, the more likely it is that you hit them with these important debuffs. In this case, it is Herndig's A2 here. Decrease defense and decrease accuracy. 100% chance to place as long as resist doesn't cut in here. Also throw in, I picked up a soul for Herndig, so he's got a 1-star Soul Reap. So if he happens to hit someone down to 4% HP, the Reaper comes in and finishes the job. I've been surprised how much I've actually seen this happen, and not just for unkillable people where the Reaper bounces off. So he's definitely finished off some fights with that. That said, they were usually fights that I was going to win already, so it didn't seem to really turn the tides in most of the places that I saw it, but it's fun to see that kick in. Third man in the rotation is Goffred Brassclad. So I picked him up in the Guaranteed Champion event that happened a little while back. And, he's got some interesting things. So this is why I ended up picking him for the arena team. He's got this interesting passive skill. If an ally is about to be killed by a fatal hit, blocks incoming damage, puts block damage on them, and then the passive effect, whenever an ally is attacked while under a block damage buff placed by this champion, this only happens from this passive, then it has a booked 100% chance of placing stun on the attacker. This does happen on the same turn that triggers the active effect, so when someone tries to kill anyone in my party, then instead they get block damage and they get stunned, and then anyone else who continues to hit that person gets stunned. So this is definitely an opportunity for some control here. This also helps mitigate against the fact that Genbo is in that first slot. So as I mentioned, he can't be protected by that increased defense that we get from Seeker when an AoE hit comes in. But since he's first, he's the first one with the opportunity for this passive to trigger. And so definitely I see Goffred come in and save Genbo a fair amount of the time if we start taking damage from the enemy. Let's see, the other big thing he has, this is the skill that I have prioritized for him. So his A2 is a booked 100% AoE stun. So the goal here is just put the enemy team out of commission by the first time he gets a turn. His next one, typical for a defense champion, one of the skills is a buff of some sort. So that's just an increased defense. Not super important here because Seeker also places that usually by the time this would come around. The part that's maybe useful is it removes any decreased defense and weaken debuffs. And so if we caught a debuff wave from the enemies, those are the ones that are most critical to get off of us in most cases. Blessing-wise, as I mentioned in my Blessing video, this is one of the people that I'm hoping to get up to 4 stars with Temporal Chains. And so decreasing enemy speed for each active buff. The hope here is if Seeker does not manage to win the speed race and they get someone like an Arbiter in, placing buffs on the team, as soon as they place those buffs, they're starting to lose their speed, and we have a chance of getting our team in before we take hits from the other team. Stats on Goffred. So I pushed the accuracy hard here. 483 in this case, a lot higher than we saw for Herndig. Still crit capped, so he can hit pretty hard, and then focused on defense for him. So almost 4,000 defense. So a pretty hard hitter. That's not his primary job. His primary job is crowd control, but got him to deal a decent amount of damage along the way. Speed is 225. That gets him into the third place here, in between Herndig's 247 and Genbo, I believe, is at 220. Masteries on Goffred. Again, Eagle Eye to really pump that accuracy up. So hopefully as I progress into teams with more and more resist, he's still able to pierce that and crowd control them. And then, some of your other classic accuracy and other interesting support masteries. Defense, again, Retribution for these occasional counterattacks that could make a big difference. Cycle of Revenge, new extra turns if your allies are being hit by critical hits. So hopefully come in and get that stun if things are going bad. Harvest Despair here. This is if you place a crowd control debuff, you can place Leech also. So that gives us an option to have some amount of healing. He has multiple skills here that place stun, and so we've got a chance of placing Leech alongside that, which might help us regain some HP. Finally, we have Genbo. His job is to finish everyone off, to deal a bunch of damage and end the fight. And so I've got him here in, crit rate, swift parry. I was able to get him in crit damage gloves. Usually at the level of equipment I have, I'm not able to do crit damage gloves very often. I usually have to go crit rate on people that need to hit the cap. But Genbo has this nice skill. He buffs himself with increased crit rate, 30% increased crit rate, and 30% increased crit damage, which means 70% is enough crit rate for him to be crit capped. And so looking at the stats here, 220 speed is enough for him to get in there. And crit rate 76%, which is effectively 100% with that skill of his. 254% crit damage. That's much higher than I've been able to build just about any other champion. Accuracy here, I just got 115 from random pieces of equipment. That's not his job. He is able to steal buffs with his A1 and able to decrease buff duration with the A2. So he's able to use accuracy, but that's not what he's here for. He's here to end the fight. And then attack of 4K. I've also got him in a Swift Parry set, so a chance of, again, not dying when he gets down to 1 HP. One thing that's a little awkward about this is it overlaps with that Gofred passive, so if he takes a fatal hit, there's a chance that he'll get both the block damage from Gofred and waste this Swift Parry and have Unkillable up at the same time. That might come in handy if you're facing like a Helicath that ignores block damage but not unkillable. Usually it's just a little bit of a waste, but it's another way to try to keep Genbo alive long enough to take one last turn. His big skill here is Heartless Blitz. So this is an AoE attack, chance of decreasing duration of buffs, but it just hits hard. It's here to hit hard after he's buffed himself with Sword Trance. He also has he can ignore Unkillable when he's under increased attack. Seeker's speed up that we saw increases his attack, so he should have that buff when he's attacking here. And he can't have his attack decreased, which is pretty nice as well. Genbo's just in here to hit really hard and into the battle. Masteries are pretty consistent with that. So once again, you see a different mastery path for PvP than you see in PvE. So we went with Helm Smasher, so a chance of ignoring 25% of target's defense. That's a lot more useful in PvP than War Master or Giant Slayer. War Master and Giant Slayer are based on max HP, and they deal a percent of max HP, which is great when you're fighting something with millions of HP like a PvE boss. Not so great in the arena, where 3% of HP or 6% of HP is going to be not a ton. Whereas ignoring 25% of defense can add 25% or so to the damage that you're dealing. Once again, taking Retribution, so when people on the team start taking damage, if he can come in and hit them hard, his A1 also hits quite hard, so this is a chance for him to knock some people out. So that's my classic speed team build for my second arena team here. What it does well, number one, with Seeker running at 302 speed, I get the first turn a lot of the time. So even these other speed teams, we see an Arbiter team here with Haikatoon, they're definitely planning to get the first turn for this build. Hopefully I can squeeze in and beat them to the punch. Not a lot of sustain here, so we do pretty badly against teams that are built to just outlive you. Teams with a lot of block damage, big shields like Underpriest Brogni or some things like that. We don't last very long, but we're hoping that we don't need to, that we have everyone dead in the first round. So let's see if this team can take down some of the folks that Team 1 was not able to finish. Well, there you have it. It does manage to kill one team that the other one couldn't. It loses to the other two. Those are some pretty solid arena defense teams here. But the goal in building this second team is to really build something that can succeed in different situations. I still have that first arena team. So when I see the sort of team that it is really good at defeating, I can swap in that one. The goal is to make sure that I have a team that can handle some new ones. But just to see this team in action a little more, let's refresh this and run the new team against the whole set and see how they do against a set of 10. So here's where I landed. 8 out of 10. Not bad for Gold 5. So this team is pretty much on par with my other one in terms of total win rate. That's it for tonight. GG out.